The street was quiet. Broken houses stood like skeletons against the red sky. Smoke rose from burned roofs, and dust covered the ground like an endless blanket. In the middle of that silence, a small sound could be heard, a weak cry. It came from a little alien girl lying in the dirt. Her thin arms pulled her body forward slowly. Her legs did not move. They were twisted, broken long ago. She whispered for help. Her voice was like wind passing through empty ruins, but no one stopped. Villagers passed by her, their eyes cold. They looked at her but pretended she did not exist. Some even stepped aside as if she was dirt under their feet. In their minds, she was already lost. A child who could not walk was useless in a world where survival was the only rule. Her small face was wet with tears. Her silver skin had turned pale. Her big eyes, once bright, now looked empty. She clutched a broken piece of cloth, the only thing left from her mother. She whispered, "Please." But the wind carried her words away. Days had passed like this, hunger biting her stomach, thirst burning her throat. Yet no one gave her food, no one gave her water. She began to believe she would die there, alone in the dirt, forgotten by everyone. But then one day a shadow fell over her. At first she thought it was another villager who would walk past. But this shadow was taller, heavier. It did not move quickly. It stopped. She froze, afraid to look up. Slowly her eyes lifted, and she saw him. It was not one of her people. It was a human. His tall figure stood in heavy armor, his face rough, his eyes sharp. He looked down at her with something she did not understand. He was not her kind. He was the kind they called carnivore, the kind mothers warned children about. She trembled, her heart racing. The man stood still, his boots pressed into the dirt. He watched the little girl crawl. His orders were clear in his head. The war was over. His mission was to move supplies and guard the path, he was told, not to get involved with locals. "Do not waste time," the commander had said. Yet here he was, looking at a child no one wanted. The girl whispered again, "Help." Her voice was soft, broken. The word was not even in his language, but he understood. Her eyes told the story. She was too weak to rise, too broken to run. And yet, she was still alive, still fighting. The soldier felt something heavy in his chest. He remembered another time long ago when he was a boy, hungry and cold, when no one came for him. He remembered the pain of being invisible. And now standing before him was that same pain in the shape of a small alien child. For a moment, he thought to turn away. He told himself, "She is not my problem." But his boots would not move. His hands tightened, his breath grew heavy. Something inside him said this was not a choice, it was a test. The girl reached out her hand, trembling fingers covered in dust. Her eyes shone with a desperate light, like the last flame of a candle fighting against the dark. He bent down slowly. His shadow covered her. The villagers in the distance paused. Watching in silence, some whispered, "Why is he stopping?" Others shook their heads, "It is pointless, she is broken." But the man did not hear them, he only saw her, fragile and alone. With one strong arm, he lifted her up from the dirt. She was lighter than he expected, almost like carrying air. Her head rested against his chest, her breath shallow. Her eyes widened in shock. No one had touched her with kindness before. The soldier looked around. His comrades were not there yet, only villagers with judging eyes. He ignored them. He held the girl close. Her small hand gripped his armor tightly as if afraid he would drop her. For the first time in days, she felt warmth. For the first time in her short life, someone had chosen her. The broken girl in the dirt, whom no one helped, was finally in the arms of someone who cared. The man knew his decision would bring trouble. He knew his people would question him. He knew the commanders would call this weakness. But as he looked down at the little girl, his heart answered louder than his orders. He whispered more to himself than to her, "Not this time, I won't walk away." The girl closed her eyes, for the first time feeling safe. She did not know his name. She did not know his world. But she knew one thing. This man was her second chance. And in that broken street, under the red sky, the story of the human and the broken alien girl truly began. The soldier carried the little, alien girl through the ruined streets. His boots crushed the dirt, his armor heavy on his shoulders, yet the child in his arms felt lighter than any weapon he had ever held. She barely moved, her eyes half closed, her breath weak. Her broken legs hung down, useless and fragile. Around him, villagers stopped their work and stared. Some whispered in their strange language, some even laughed quietly. To them, this was foolish. Why would a human soldier, feared for his strength and cruelty, waste his time with a broken child? They had left her in the dirt for weeks. If her own people did not care, why would he? But the man did not stop. He remembered the words of his commander echoing in his head. Stay focused. No distractions. We cannot afford weakness. And yet, here he was, with weakness cradled in his arms. He looked down at her small face. Her eyelids fluttered as she whispered something in her alien tongue. He did not understand the words, but he understood the plea in her voice. It was the same cry every child made when they wanted to live. He reached the edge of the ruins where the human camp stood. High walls of metal sheets surrounded the base. Soldiers walked back and forth, rifles on their backs. When they saw him carrying the alien girl, they stopped, their faces twisted with confusion. "Sergeant," one called. "What are you doing?" "Put her down, that thing is not our responsibility." The man ignored him. He kept walking. The girl stirred in his arms, opening her eyes slowly. Her gaze shifted between the soldiers, fear filling her again. She had seen these humans before, their guns, their fire, their strength. She thought maybe this one would hurt her too. Inside the camp, the tension grew. Some soldiers blocked his path. "Orders are clear," one said. "We don't waste supplies on locals, especially not broken ones." His tone was sharp. His eyes filled with disgust as he looked at the girl. The man stood tall, gripping her tighter. "She is a child," he said firmly. "She needs food, water, and care." The others laughed bitterly. "She is useless. She cannot walk. She cannot fight. She will only slow us down." One spat on the ground. "If her own kind left her behind, why should we take her?" The girl heard every word. She understood enough to know what they meant. Her small hands trembled as she clung to the man's armor. She expected him to let her go, to drop her back into the dirt, just like everyone else had done before. Her heart raced with fear, but the soldier did not move. His jaw tightened, his eyes sharp as steel. He looked at his comrades and said in a cold voice, "Because we are not like them." His words cut through the air. Silence followed. He walked past the others and entered his tent. Inside, he laid the girl gently on a blanket. She curled into a ball, shivering. Her eyes searched his face. She could not understand his language fully, but she understood his actions. For the first time, someone had not left her. The soldier brought her a canteen of water. He lifted it to her lips. She drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. Then he gave her a small piece of bread. She ate slowly, afraid it would be taken away. He watched her carefully, making sure she did not choke. Later that night, when the camp grew quiet, the man sat on the edge of his bedroll, staring at the little alien girl. His mind was full of questions. Why had he done this? Why risk his orders, his reputation, maybe even punishment? He could not answer fully. He only knew that when he saw her in the dirt, abandoned and broken, something deep inside him refused to walk away. The girl, half asleep, turned her head toward him, her eyes still wet from tears. Her tiny lips moved, whispering a word in her language. He did not understand, but it sounded soft, almost like a name. Maybe she was thanking him, or maybe she was just calling for her mother who never came. The soldier sighed and looked at the stars through the torn flap of his tent. The war had taken so much already, and yet, here was one life he could save. Morning came. The commander soon learned what had happened. His voice was harsh, filled with anger. "You disobeyed orders, Sergeant. You brought weakness into this camp. Do you want the whole unit to starve because of your pity?" The man stood firm, his hands by his sides. "She is just a child," he said again. "If saving a child is weakness, then call me weak." The commander's eyes burned with fury, but deep down, Even he could not deny the soldier's words. Still, he gave a warning. "This is your burden. No rations will be wasted. If she slows us down, she will be left behind, understand?" The man nodded. He knew the risk. He accepted it. When the commander left, he looked down at the girl. She was awake now, watching him with wide eyes. Her tiny hand reached out, touching his armor gently, as if to make sure he was real. He let her hold on. He whispered softly, though she might not understand, "I will not let you fall again." And in that moment, the decision was made. Whatever the cost, he would protect her. He would give her a chance no one else had given. A second chance to live. The camp did not welcome the alien child. Soldiers whispered whenever they saw her. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others laughed cruelly, calling her a burden. The girl felt their eyes on her every time she tried to sit up. Every time she reached for water, their stares carried the same message. She does not belong here. The man ignored them, but he knew the whispers were spreading. Already some soldiers had reported to the commander. The camp was divided. Half thought he had lost his mind, the other half simply did not care. To them, she was just another mouth to feed, a broken alien girl who could not walk. One evening, the soldier sat by his fire, the girl resting beside him on a blanket. Her thin frame shook with cold, so he placed his own jacket over her shoulders. She looked at him with wide eyes, as if she could not believe he would give something of his own. He nodded at her, silent but firm. A group of soldiers approached. Their leader, a broad man with scars across his cheek, spoke loudly so everyone could hear. "Why are you wasting your time? She will never walk again. She will never fight. She is not one of us." The girl flinched at his harsh tone, shrinking under the jacket. The man stood up, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the fire. "She is alive," he answered, calmly. "That is enough reason," the scarred soldier sneered. "Alive? She is useless, even her people threw her away. Do you think you can fix her? Do you think kindness can mend broken bones?" His voice carried laughter, but his eyes burned with challenge. The girl's small hands clutched at the soldier's jacket, her face hidden, but tears slid down her cheeks. She understood enough of their words. Every syllable cut deeper into her heart. She was sure he would leave her now, the way everyone else had, but the man's jaw tightened, his voice cut through the night. "Better to save one child than to become monsters who feel nothing." His words silenced the campfire crowd. No one laughed this time. Even the scarred soldier had no quick reply. He turned away with a curse, but his shoulders were stiff. Later that night, when the others had gone, the man sat down again beside the girl. She looked at him with wet eyes, whispering something he did not understand. But he understood her trembling hand when it reached for his. He let her hold his finger, small and fragile against his calloused skin. The next morning he began to work. He searched the camp for scraps, metal, rods, leather straps, broken equipment. The other soldiers mocked him. "Building toys for your pet?" They jeered, but he ignored them. His hands worked carefully, bending and shaping. His mind focused only on one goal. By evening, he had built crude braces, 2 simple frames that could hold her legs. He carried them back to his tent, where the girl watched him with curiosity, her head tilted as he knelt beside her. He smiled softly, showing her the braces. She did not understand what they were until he gently placed them against her legs, tightening the straps. She winced in pain at first, but he whispered, in a calm tone, steadying her. When the braces were secure, he lifted her under the arms. "Stand," he said softly, guiding her upward. The girl shook her head, fear filling her eyes. She had tried before, long ago, and always failed, but the soldier's grip was strong, steady like stone. She leaned on him, and with trembling legs she rose a little, her knees buckled, and she fell back. He caught her before she hit the ground. "Again," he said firmly. His eyes never left hers. She tried again, this time her legs trembling but holding for a few seconds. She gasped in shock, her silver eyes wide. She had never stood this tall before. never felt the ground beneath her feet. The moment lasted only a breath before she fell again. The braces clattered. She cried out, ashamed and afraid, but he lifted her once more, his voice calm. Falling means nothing. We will try again tomorrow. That night, she could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the braces beside her blanket. Her small heart raced. Somewhere deep inside, a spark had lit, a tiny flame of hope she thought had died long ago. Outside the tent, the camp remained restless. Soldiers whispered louder now. Some said the sergeant had lost his mind. Others feared his actions would bring punishment for them all. A few, however, began to wonder, what if he was right? What if kindness was not weakness? The commander watched from a distance, silent. He did not interfere yet, but his patience was thin. The man was testing the limits of discipline. The girl did not know of the arguments or the whispers. She only knew one truth. When everyone else left her, he stayed. When others called her broken, he said she was alive. When she fell, he lifted her again and again. His hands never let go. In the middle of a war-torn world, among the ruins and the hate, she had found something she thought did not exist. Someone who believed in her, and though she could not yet walk, she now believed in something too. For the first time in her life, she believed she had a chance. The morning sun rose over the human camp. Its light touched the broken walls and rusted metal sheets. Soldiers moved about, preparing for another day of guard duty, drills, and repairs. But inside one quiet corner of the camp, a different kind of battle was about to begin. The little alien girl sat on a blanket, staring at the braces lying in front of her. Her fingers touched the rough metal as if they were treasures. Her eyes showed both fear and longing. She remembered how she had stood for a moment yesterday, only to fall again. The memory of failure weighed on her heart, but so did the strange feeling of hope. The man entered the tent, carrying a small container of water and a piece of bread. He set them beside her and gave a small nod. She ate quietly, watching him. He said no unnecessary words, but his steady presence was enough to give her courage. After she finished, he picked up the braces and motioned for her legs. She hesitated, then slowly stretched them forward. They were thin and weak, the skin pale from years of crawling. The man worked carefully, strapping the braces around her, knees and ankles, tightening them just enough to support but not cause pain. He placed his hands under her arms and spoke firmly. Up! The girl's heart pounded. She shook her head at first, but his calm eyes told her she was safe. With trembling effort, she let him lift her. Her legs pressed against the ground. The braces held them straight, but they shook like branches. In the wind, she tried to take a step, but her knees buckled. She collapsed, only to be caught in his strong arms. Tears filled her eyes. Shame burned in her chest. She thought he would give up now, like all the others had, but instead, he sat, her back on her feet. Again, he said. She gasped, confused. Again, he nodded, his voice low but steady. Again? So she tried again and again. Each time she fell, the dirt stained her hands and face. Each time pain shot through her legs, and each time she cried. But the man always lifted her, always held her steady, never once turning away. The other soldiers gathered at a distance, watching with mocking smiles. Some laughed openly. Look at that. He is teaching a broken alien to walk, one said. He should train her to crawl faster, that's all she can do. But their laughter did not stop him. His eyes never left the girl. His arms never failed to catch her. By midday, she was exhausted. Sweat and tears covered her face. Her breaths came in sharp gasps. Her body begged to rest, but inside her chest a fire was growing. Every time she fell, she wanted to prove to him that she could try again. She wanted to show that his effort was not wasted. Finally, as the sun dipped lower, something changed. He lifted her again, steadying her weight. She took a shaky step forward, then another. Her body swayed dangerously, but this time she did not fall. Her eyes widened in shock. She had taken 2 steps. The man's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. He did not cheer or clap. He simply nodded. Good, he said softly. Then he helped her sit back on the blanket. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly. Her legs ached, but her heart soared. For the first time in her life, she had stood tall and walked even if it was only 2 steps. She looked up at him, her silver eyes shining, and whispered a word in her language. It sounded soft and grateful. He did not know the meaning, but he understood her face. He gave her a small piece of dried fruit as a reward. She ate with a smile, her first smile in many days. That night, as the campfire burned, whispers spread again. But they were different. Now some soldiers still mocked, but others remained silent, thinking about what they had seen. The scarred soldier who had mocked her before said nothing this time. His eyes had narrowed, watching carefully, as if unwilling to admit that maybe, just maybe, the child was changing. The commander heard the reports too. He shook his head in disbelief. He is wasting his time, he muttered. Yet even he could not ignore the truth. Something was happening, something none of them expected. Inside the tent, the girl lay curled under the soldier's jacket. Her legs throbbed with pain, but her lips still carried that small smile. She whispered the same word again before sleep took her. She did not know if he understood, but she whispered it anyway. The man sat awake, polishing his weapon with one hand, glancing at the child with the other. He had fought many battles in his life, faced enemies with claws and teeth, stood against storms of fire, but this fight, the fight to give a broken child a chance, felt harder than any war. And yet, it was the only one that mattered now. Tomorrow, she would fall again. He knew it, but tomorrow, she would also rise again. And one day, those painful steps would become a walk, then a run, then freedom. For now, he was content with 2 steps, 2 painful, trembling steps that had changed everything. The next morning, the camp awoke to the usual sounds of boots marching, metal clanging, and voices calling orders. But hidden within the noise was something new. The sound of slow, careful steps. The little alien girl with braces on her thin legs was trying again. The soldier held her under the arms. Steady and strong, his voice calm. "Step," he said. She moved her foot forward, trembling. The braces kept her knees from collapsing. She swayed, nearly falling, but his grip held her firm. Another step followed. Her face twisted with pain, but her eyes glowed with determination. From a distance, soldiers watched. Some smirked, expecting her to fail again, but others said nothing. They had seen her fall many times already, yet every day she rose again. Now she was walking farther than yesterday, by the time the sun reached its height. She had taken 5 steps. She collapsed afterward, panting, tears running down her face. But they were not only tears of pain, they were tears of victory. For 5 steps, she had stood like others stood. For 5 steps, she had been more than broken. The man crouched beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. He gave her a piece of dried fruit again. She smiled faintly, holding it close as if it was the greatest gift in the world. That evening, the villagers came near the camp's edge, their eyes curious. They had heard whispers. Rumors spread quickly across the ruined town. The human soldier carries the broken child, some said. She walks with his help, others added. At first, they did not believe it. To them, humans were predators, merciless and cold. Yet when they saw with their own eyes the little girl standing with braces, their hearts stirred. Mothers pulled their children closer. Fathers shook their heads in disbelief. One elder whispered, "Why would a human give her what we would not?" The girl noticed them watching. Her eyes widened with fear. She remembered how they had ignored her cries, how they had passed her by. For a moment, her body froze, but the soldier's hand on her shoulder steadied her. She lifted her chin slightly, and with trembling legs she took another step. The villagers gasped. Their whispers grew louder. Some were ashamed, some were angry, but most were silent. For they could not deny what they saw, hope in the form of a child they had abandoned. Inside the camp, the atmosphere began to shift as well. A young soldier, barely more than a boy, approached the man one evening. "Sergeant," he said quietly, "if you need extra cloth, I can bring some for her." His voice trembled with nerves, but his eyes were sincere. The man nodded once, accepting without words. The boy smiled faintly and hurried away. The girl, sitting beside the fire, looked up at the man with bright eyes. She did not understand the words, but she understood the change. Not everyone hated her now. Day by day, the steps grew longer. One morning, she walked nearly the length of the tent with his help. Her face glowed with pride. When she fell, she laughed weakly instead of crying. The sound startled even herself. She had forgotten how laughter felt. The whispers grew outside the camp, too. More villagers came to watch from afar. They hid behind broken walls, their voices low. "She is walking," they said. "The human teaches her." Some mocked in disbelief, but others began to question their own cruelty. One night, as the fire burned low, the scarred soldier approached again, his voice sharp. "Why do you waste so much on her? Do you think one broken alien matters in this world?" The man did not rise to his anger. He simply looked at the girl, who slept curled in the jacket, her tiny breath soft. Then he replied, "If saving one life does not matter, then nothing matters." The scarred soldier had no answer. He turned away, but his eyes lingered on the sleeping child longer than before. As the days passed, something remarkable happened. The villagers began leaving small offerings near the edge of the camp. Half, a loaf of bread, a jug of water, a strip of cloth. They never said the gifts were for her, but the meaning was clear. Slowly, shame had turned into quiet acts of repentance. The girl noticed the changes too. When she looked beyond the camp's walls, she no longer saw only cold eyes. Sometimes she saw kindness, hesitant but real. She had once been invisible, a shadow no one cared about. Now her small steps were changing hearts. The soldier knew it was not enough yet. He knew the road was long. Her legs were still weak, her balance fragile, but hope had taken root, and hope was stronger than orders, stronger than fear. One evening, as the stars appeared above the ruined world, the girl stood at the entrance of the tent, leaning heavily on her braces. She looked up at the sky, her eyes reflecting the light. For the first time, she whispered, words not in despair but in wonder. The man stood beside her, silent as always. His gaze followed hers. Together, they looked at the stars, two unlikely companions, a hardened soldier and a broken alien child, bound by steps of pain, steps of courage, and whispers of hope. And somewhere in the distance, the whispers continued to spread, growing louder, changing hearts one by one. The camp slept under a sky filled with pale stars. The fire burned low. Shadows stretched across the tents. The little alien girl lay wrapped in the soldier's jacket, her thin body warm. For the first time in many nights, the man sat nearby, his rifle across his knees. His eyes scanned the darkness as they always did, but that night the silence broke. A sound came first, distant footsteps, heavy and fast. Then the sharp cry of a warning horn. Raiders, the camp, exploded into noise. Soldiers grabbed weapons, shouts filled the air. The commander barked orders, "Positions, guard the supplies." The soldier rose quickly, his eyes moving first to the girl. She was awake now, frightened by the sudden chaos, her silver eyes wide, her body trembling. "Stay here," he whispered firmly. His hand pressed her shoulder. He turned to leave, but her small hand gripped his armor. Her lips moved, whispering a word in her tongue. He did not understand, but he knew its meaning. "Don't leave me." He hesitated for only a second, then pulled the blanket closer around her and stepped out. Outside, the raiders had already broken through the outer wall. Their shapes moved like shadows, armed with blades and crude rifles. They attacked with wild fury, hoping to steal supplies from the humans. The soldier joined the line, his rifle spitting fire. He moved with calm precision, each shot striking true. The raiders fell, but more poured in. The camp shook with the clash of metal, the cries of men and the screams of fear. In the chaos, one raider slipped past, crawling through a gap in the wall. His eyes landed on the small tent, on the girl inside. He grinned, teeth sharp. He saw her as easy prey. The girl's heart froze when she saw him. She wanted to scream, but her voice failed. She scrambled back, her braces clattering as she tried to push herself away. The raider stepped closer, knife in hand. His voice hissed in her language. Weak. One, even your people left you. You are mine now. Tears filled her eyes, fear crushed her chest, but then she remembered. The soldier's voice echoed in her mind. Again. Again. Falling means nothing. Her hands tightened on the ground. She pushed herself up. Her legs trembled, the braces shaking under her weight. But she stood. The raider laughed. You cannot run. But he was wrong. She took one step, then another. Her body swayed. Pain burned through her legs, but she kept moving. Her small steps carried her toward the tent's flap, away from his knife. The raider lunged, but his strike missed by inches. For the first time in her life, she was not crawling. She was standing, running, if only for a few steps. Her heart pounded like a drum, her breath sharp, but she did not fall. She reached the outside just as the soldier turned back. His eyes widened, seeing her upright, moving. For a moment, time froze. Then his rifle roared. The raider fell at the tent's entrance, his blade clattering to the dirt. The girl collapsed into the soldier's arms, her body shaking violently. Tears streamed down her face. She clung to him tightly, but in her fear there was also something new. Pride. She had not crawled, not this time. The soldier held her close, his jaw tight. He looked down at her, then at the fallen raider. Rage burned in his chest, but so did something, stronger. He whispered softly, "You stood." His voice was rough, but his eyes glowed with fierce pride. The fight outside still raged. The commander shouted orders, but whispers had already spread among the soldiers. They had seen her stumble out of the tent on her feet. They had seen her fight fear with fragile courage. The man set her back gently, inside the tent. "Stay," he said firmly. His hand lingered on her head for 1 second, then he turned back to the battle. His rifle blazed again. The raiders, shaken by resistance, began to retreat. Their bodies fell in the dirt as they fled into the night. When dawn broke, the camp was scarred but standing. The walls burned in places, supplies scattered, but the soldiers were alive. The girl sat outside the tent, her braces bent and scratched, but her eyes shining. The villagers who had come near during the attack stood at a distance, watching. They had seen it too. The broken girl, once crawling in the dirt, had stood against death. They whispered among themselves, shame deeper now, respect beginning to grow. One old woman wept quietly, whispering, "Forgive us, little one." The commander called the soldier to his side, his voice low but heavy. "I still think you are reckless," he admitted, "but today, that child proved something." He did not finish the thought, but his eyes betrayed a hint of respect. The soldier said nothing, he simply lay